So today, slightly at a different angle, I thought I would break up the routine, and instead of this week's vlog, I would provide you with the promised colored pencil review. So let's dive into it. So I'm going to be looking at 6 different brands of colored pencils that I mentioned last week. We're going to be looking at a bunch of different parameters, and at the end of the video, I'm gonna try not to make this video too terribly long, but also I don't want to neglect to or fail to mention any important piece of information that might help you in determining which colored pencils you're trying to get or you want to get. So I'm going to be going through all the different parameters, and at the end give you my take as to who or which brand the winner is. Alrighty, so these will be the brands, as I mentioned last week in the vlog, I think. These will be the brands that we're going to be looking at today. So we got the Faber-Castell, the Derwent Artists, Prismacolor Premier, Koh-i-Noor Polycolor, Lyra, Rembrandt Polycolor, and the Blick Studio Artist Color Pencils. The goal was to get a 12-pack of each of these brands, which I did, with the exception of the Blick Studio Color Pencils, because at the time I was getting them, they were out of the 12-pack, so I got the 48-pack instead, which, as we move through this review video, you're going to find out that the price for these, for the 48-pack, was pretty attractive, pretty affordable. I'm going to take this sheet that I worked out, and I'm going to jog through the different brands and what I think about them. So this is the sheet. Basically, this is the color representation of each of the 12 packs. When it comes to the Blick Studios, I basically took the closest color to the other brands to the 12 pack that would be represented in that 48 pack. So starting off with the Faber-Castell Polychromos, as you can see, we got a beautiful hinged metal tin with all the beautiful colored pencils in them. So these colored pencils are oil based, as we're also going to see that we're going to be dealing with two types of colored pencils, and that's wax and oil based. So these happen to be oil based. The barrel of the pencil is round, which is pretty common for today's colored pencils. They come pre-sharpened and with the rounded bottom of the pencil right here, nicely pre-sharpened. The barrel of the pencil also is colored and faithfully represented as to the color it's supposed to be. Build quality is excellent. From the first sight, from the first look of it, you grab it and it just feels pretty solid. Nice lacquer, no chipping, no cheap feeling to the wood or the barrel itself, no splitting, and personally I really like the fact that the bottom of the pencil is also lacquered and capped off, because as we move through this review, there are some remarks that I'm going to have about the other brands, and that particular issue, or the lack of the capping at the bottom of the pencil, causes some issues. So as I mentioned, this comes in a nice hinged tin. At the back of the tin, it tells you right here, it has the color range with the representation numbers, so you can track them down to the rest of the kit. Speaking of, the entire color palette consists of 120 shades, which come either in a metal tin, or you can also purchase it in a much more premium looking format in the form of a wooden box, which, if that's something you're interested in, it does come with a steep price tag. You can purchase these pencils separately. on a number of different websites. For this specific review, I picked 3 websites, 3 places online that you can find most of these pencils at. One of them being dickblick.com, jerrysartorama.com, and utrechart.com. So these pencils will run you $1.69 a pop and $1.43 if you buy 48 or more. So again, my battery died, so I had to replace it. No shocker there. So as I was saying, you can purchase the Faber-Castell separately. That will set you back $1.69 a pop, $1.43 if you buy them. If you buy 48 plus. Currently, all 3 websites offer the 12-pack at $16.13, and the 120 entire palette pack at $161.25. The saturation on these colors, on these colored pencils, is absolutely excellent. They're all pretty pigmented. The laydown is great due to the oiliness, the oil base of these colored pencils. They feel incredibly creamy, and the laydown, I try them out on multiple different papers and surfaces, and I experience no drag, no squeakiness. The creaminess and the laydown is pretty excellent. The Lightfastness, as I'm going to be going through this review, I did a separate Lightfast test where I took one color of each of the 12 packs and subjected them to UV light for some time, just to kind of test for the Lightfastness, or the ability of the color to retain its color. Blendability is again excellent with these colored pencils. The only thing is Faber-Castell does not provide you with their own dedicated colorless blender as the other brands do. However, you can do so with your regular paper tortillon, such as this one right here, or a thicker one, or whatever you prefer. That does blend the colors pretty great. You can achieve sharp edges as well as gradually blend the colors together. I sort of represented that on this sheet here, so the entire color gamut of the 12 pack right here, you can see that the colors do blend together quite nicely. You can achieve pretty saturated color patch, or you can gradually, like I said, fade it out. Alright, so moving on from Faber-Castell to Derwent Artists pencils. This, I gotta say, is my very first exposure to these pencils. I never tried them before, so I was quite excited to try something new. Right off the bat, again, it comes in a nice metal tin, unhinged this time. They're also oil-based, round barrel. The build is also excellent, as with the Faber-Castells. I believe it's also cedar wood. You can kind of see the seam of the 2 halves as the barrel of the pencil was glued together. However, there's no chipping, no evident separation of the 2 halves. The bottom of the colored pencil is also capped off. And the difference between the Faber-Castells and these Derwents is that not the entire barrel is color matched to the core. But the bottom, as you can see, it has a little little color cap that's a pretty faithful representation of the core inside the barrel. I should also mention that all of these pencils that I'll be reviewing are the same thickness. They're 3.8 millimeters thick, which also means that all of these cores are going to be softer. General rule of thumb is that the thicker the core, the softer the pencil is. So all of these are going to be in the same neighborhood. Again, nicely lacquered, as I mentioned. Really great build quality. These are made in England. Faber-Castells are a German brand. So here we have some English pencils. So when it comes to when I laid down the color on this sheet, they are not actually as saturated as the Faber-Castells, and what I was not impressed with was the color laydown on the paper. It did provide me with a significant amount of drag. They feel kind of harder for an oil-based colored pencils, and for that thick core. They are softer than your usual colored pencils, but they do feel kind of draggy. They do have some sharp, hard edges on them, and as you can see over here, you can really see the streakiness as I was laying the color down. No matter how hard I tried to blend it right off the bat when I was drawing out these blocks, you can still see the sharp edges on the paper. So not a big fan of these pencils. They do have some nice color representation. The entire palette is represented by 120 different shades. However, you can't buy them separately, so they only come in sets. All of these prices are updated as of yesterday, which was July 17th. So if you're watching this video way in the future, the prices might be different there. So I was really surprised that these run quite expensive, more expensive even than the Faber-Castells. As of right now, the 12 pack is $18.19 on Blick. Jerry's Artorama doesn't carry the 12 pack, they only carry the 36 pack, which is $36.39, and Utrecht doesn't even carry these pencils at all. For the 120 pack, $283.49 at Blick. Same thing goes for Jerry's Artorama, and as I said, Utrecht does not carry these pencils. When it comes to Lightfastness, I did have some issues with the color retention. There was some bleaching when subjected to UV light, or sunlight in other words. The blendability, again, some shortcomings there. When it comes to blendability, Derwent doesn't provide you with the colorless blender either, so you basically have to resort to your tortillions or other blending tools, but again, some shortcomings there. So that's Derwent. Next up on the list, Prismacolor. Personally, I might be a little biased because I have been using these pencils for years now, and I do own the entire palette, which doesn't mean that there are some drawbacks and shortcomings when it comes to these pencils that I personally would like to see rectified in the future. So Prismacolors, they have sort of traded manufacturers over the time. I'm not sure if they still manufactured or owned by Sanford, but in the past they were produced by Sanford or owned by Sanford. Right now, I think the majority of the pencils are made down in Mexico. They retain the same color palette over the years. Prismacolor actually has been adding more colors to their palette, but on that a little later on. So these, as opposed to our first two competitors, the Derwents and Faber-Castells, Prismacolors are wax-based. So slightly different behavior when it comes to using these colored pencils. Again, round barrel. So the build quality is severely lacking and has been getting worse over the years for unknown reasons, but there's a lot of pencils that I've had since I do own the entire palette I've had multiple pencils that have been splitting down the middle of the core, dislodging, and just writing out the back, since these pencils are uncapped. So I was forced to use like hot glue or something just to glue it back in. The cedar wood around the edges of the tip or around the core are known to flake off. You can clearly see the seam running down the entire barrel that also tends to split sometimes. The etching on the side of the pencils, I don't know if they started using inferior wood, but sometimes it is not as clear as you might expect or see on the other pencils. I mean, when it comes to the etching, I don't really pay too much attention to it. It's just it does lead me to believe that the wood quality is not up to par, since you do see some splintering and splitting down the line. The back of the pencils on this crimson red pencil, I can see is chipping over here. So the lacquer they're using on the wood, I don't know if it's caused by the wood quality or the lacquer too, might not be the best of quality either. So the build quality, not impressed with that, and haven't been for a long time now. Pencils do come in an unhinged tin. The back of the pencils, the back of the tin tells you exactly what colors you're getting with the respective identifying numbers in the back, so that's great. They also provide you with the other sets and their numbers. So the build quality of the tin is pretty nice. They sit in a plastic sleeve or organizer tray, whatever you want to call it, so the pencils do not move when being transported, so no complaint there. The entire palette contains of 150 pencils. For years it used to be 132, but I think 2, 3, maybe 4 years ago they came out with new colors and rounded out the set to 150. They do come pre-sharpened, and what I really like about these pencils is that they don't, when they're sharpening them out of factory, they're not wasting any wood. The tip is really the angle's not as acute on the sharpening as the other ones, so it's really just exposing the core just enough so they're sharpened to a nice tip, which kind of right out of the box gives you the option to lay down some really thin or thick lines if you wish to do so. You can purchase these separately, currently $1.29 and $1.16 if you buy 12 or more on Blick. For the 12 pack, $10.99 on Blick, $12.99 are Jerry's Arorama, and $10.66 on Utrecht. Currently, the entire $150 set, 150 color set, is for sale on all three sites for $69.99. So I say jump on it. That's a really great price, because they do run a lot more expensive than that. Saturation is great, as you can see. Very rich pigmented colors. Laydown being a wax color, also really creamy, really smooth, no drag whatsoever. Blendability is excellent, although you have to really work at it, since they are wax based. You just kind of have to work it and sort of do it in layers rather than blend them all in one go. So a little ding right there, but they do provide you with a colorless blender. You usually have to purchase them separately. They do not come with any of the sets. They do come with the mixed media sets, and this is what it looks like. So that's your colorless blender. I've been used quite a bit. I think it's the same price as a separately purchased pencil. So So that's Prismacolors for you. The Koh-i-Noor Polycolor pencils. So these are pencils made by Koh-i-Noor in the Czech Republic. These I have come into contact with a lot. I have been using these for years. Little interesting fact, I actually have had this set that I purchased from Michaels. Right after opening the tints, I can spot some differences. So this is the Michaels set. This is a set that I bought online. You can see, looking at the barrels, there are some differences in terms of color identification. As you can see, the set that I purchased online tells you what color it is, along with the barcode, the identifying number, and such. This only gives you basically the identifying number, which seems to be different, although the colors are the same thing. But with the set that I purchased from Michaels, you don't have the color name. They don't come with the color names, so you kind of have to look for yourself and just kind of find that out. The online set that I purchased, as you can see here, or maybe not, dark blue. This one only has the number, the barcode, and whatever batch numbers these are. So I found that kind of odd. Other than that, everything tends to be the same. Also, one more thing with the Michaels set, this red orange color, I think happens to be a fluke in this set, because this is the 170 color, and in place of that in this set is the orange number 6. So I think this happens to be I guess a screwed up batch or something. So I went online and purchased this set instead. Very nice set of pencils. They come pre-sharpened. They are oil based, hexagonal barrels, very nice lacquer. I think it is California cedar wood. Build quality is also excellent. Bottom of the pencil capped, preventing those pesky issues with the barrel riding out or whatnot. Very nicely lacquered, faithful representation of the core on the outside of the barrel, which is nice. They do come pre-sharpened. Come in a nice unhinged tin. The back of a tin does give you, again, the palette that you're getting in this particular set, as well as some standard information, as they tend to. However, the only drawback on these pencils is that you only have to buy a set of some sort. They do not come separately. So, and I think the 12 pack is no, I think you can even buy a 6 pack of these pencils, but anyway, so no singles for these. On Dick Blick, they currently run at $15.09 for a 12 pack, $14.66 on Jerry's Autorama, and Utrecht does not carry these pencils. The entire palette includes, this is where it kind of gets a little tricky too. The largest set that you can purchase is consisting of 72 shades. However, there's more colors than that. They also come with a separate set of grays and separate set of reds and browns, so totaling 96 colors. So if you want the entire color palette, you buy the 72 color set plus those 2 gray and red brown sets, and your color palette will be complete. So moving on to the saturation. The saturation is excellent. Again, oil colored pencils do provide you with that smooth, creamy laydown. Lightfastness is great. There was absolute retention of color when subjected to UV light or sunlight. So that is always good to know when purchasing these pencils, that even after some sunlight exposure, your colors will be up to par. Colorless blender is provided for these pencils, and does a pretty good job of the blending. You can, however, use your paper tortillon, as with all these pencils. Both do great. The dedicated blender does obviously a little better at that. So that is in fact an option. Moving on to Lyra, another German brand of colored pencils. Again, first exposure to these pencils. Never tried these before. Right after opening the tin, you find out that it's a hinge metal tin with some nice features on the inside right here. Basically identifying numbers next to the pencil names that do happen to be edged on the pencil barrels themselves as well. So very nice redundancy going on. They also provide you with this 3-star rating system when it comes to I guess the overall quality, and they all happen to have three stars. So I didn't just take their word for it. I did subject them to testing of my own, as you'll see in a minute. So first look, again, pretty standard color palette when it comes to 12 pack. The build quality is really nice. It kind of reminds me of those Koh-i-Noor chalk pencils, same feel to it. Really no discernible seam, nice cedar wood, no splitting, no splintering. You can see that the barrel is not fully lacquered, but only the ends of the pencils are, which is okay. The color can still be discerned quite easily, as you can see here in the box. The representation of the color lacquer at the bottom of the barrels is pretty faithful to what it actually is. Inside the pencils, the core, they do come pre-sharpened, which is nice. Again, pretty standard sharpening, pretty acute angle on the tips. Capped off bottom of the pencils, which I always like to see. Really nice etching on the barrels themselves. Name, all your barcodes, batch numbers, and the identifying numbers right here, so it's all there, so you always know what colors you're actually picking. 72 colors in the entire palette. You can buy these separately. $1.72 a pop, 155. Why do I keep saying 100? $1.55 when you buy 12 plus, and that's going off of Dick Blick. On Dick Blick, currently for $9.99, sorry, $14.47 for 12 pack, and $76.09 for the entire 72 pack. Jerry's Artarama does not carry them. Utrecht offers a 12 pack for $15.46 and $76.09 again for the complete set. Saturation is excellent. There are slightly different colors, slightly different shades than the other sets. Some of the colors are more vibrant than the other guys that I already mentioned. However, the saturation, the pigmentation is really great. It's all there, no problem there. Lay down is very smooth. I think I forgot to mention that these are also oil based, so no surprise there that the lay down is pretty creamy as well. Lightfastness is the major hindrance when it comes to these pencils. These did not perform like I thought they would. As a matter of fact, this set was the worst out of this brand was the worst out of all the ones that I compared when it comes to Lightfastness, because during the test these experienced the most amount of bleaching than any other contender. Blender is included in this color palette. However, it's not included in this 12 pack. You do have to buy it separately, and I do believe they come in packs of 2, if I'm not mistaken. So that's Lyra Rembrandt Polycolor pencils. Last but not least, Blick Artists Studio colored pencils. Again, nice hinge metal tin. Again, like I mentioned at the beginning of the video, this is a 48 pack, as I was not able to find a 12 pack when I was at the time of purchase. Again, wax colored pencils. This is actually a nice surprise and a bunch of observations that I discovered when comparing these pencils. These and the Koh-i-Noor Polycolor pencils are both made in the Czech Republic. Upon closer inspection of these pencils, I started seeing the similarities more so than the differences. So to start off with the build quality, they do come pre-sharpened, no capped bottoms. However, no issues with the core riding out. They are rounded, but like I said, not capped. Nice lacquer, California cedar wood. No chipping, no splitting on any of the colored pencils. Even right here at the tip when it's sharpened, there seems to be no splintering at all. It's nicely clutching the color core. Etching includes the shade name, manufacturer, your standard batching numbers, barcodes and such. They are round as opposed to the Koh-i-Noor Polycolor, which are hexagonal, and that's basically where the differences stop. Other than that, it's pretty much the same colored pencil. And it was pretty interesting to find out, mainly because of the color difference. The Koh-i-Noors being substantially more expensive than the Blicks, or than the Blick Studios. Like I mentioned before, both made in the Czech Republic. Both manufacturers or both brands come in the same color palette, same identifying numbers, same name. Basically, if I were to take this carmine red from the Koh-i-Noor and this carmine red from the Blick Studio, they're exactly the same pencils. The color laydown, although it might not seem by the color representation on the barrel, it is exactly the same color pencils. The color lays down the same way as you can see here on this sheet. So these are the Koh-i-Noor colors, these are the Blick Studios. So this being a 48 pack, I was able to pick out, according to this color palette right here that I did previously on the Koh-i-Noor, I was able to pick out the same colors here for the Studio to compare them side by side, exactly to the T, the same colored pencils. I would not be surprised if they came out the same factory in the Czech Republic. You can buy these separately as well. 95 cents a pop, 85 cents when you buy 12 plus on Blick. As of right now, $9.99 for the 12 pack, $56.99 for the 72 pack. However, there's 91 colors if you buy them separately. Again, the largest set that you can buy with these Blicks is 72 plus a Grace palette. That's also separate. Jerry's Artorama doesn't carry them. Utrecht, same prices, $9.99 for 12 packs, $56.99 for a 72 pack. Saturation, like I mentioned, is excellent, basically identical to the Koh-i-Noor, as well as laydown. Although it's kind of strange, or it's kind of surprising that Koh-i-Noor being oil-based versus Dick Blick's being wax based. Blendability excellent. Again, Blick does provide you with the colorless blender, which happens to be again exactly the same as the Koh-i-Noor. The wood used for this pencil happens to be the same California cedar wood, so that leads me to believe that this in fact is the same colored pencils as the Koh-i-Noors. So that sort of wraps up the first look and the features when it comes to these colored pencils and what you get out of the box. Next up on the menu is the promised Lightfastness and blendability sheet that I prepared specifically for all these manufacturers. Pretty basic. So here on the left side I picked one color out of each, one color that's the closest to all of them. You can see that the Derwent and the Lyras are kind of the same color, not entirely faithfully represented by all the other ones, but that was the closest color that is provided in the 12 pack. So what I did basically, I took this sheet outside and covered half of these circles with multiple sheets of paper. I think I used a black paper to fully shield this side of the circles, this side of the colors from the UV light of the sunlight, and left it out there for a week, I believe. And as you can see, the Lyra, like I mentioned before, experienced the most amount of bleaching. I mean, the difference is pretty apparent. The left side of the circle bleached out to somewhat of a lighter shade of blue. The Derwent experienced some bleaching, but you can't really tell. Upon closer inspection, you can sort of discern a line going down the middle of the circle, but it's not as severe as the Lyras. So that did put a major ding in deciding whether or not I'm going to be purchasing more of these colored pencils, which I'm most likely not going to be. Blendability is, however, excellent down the line. One thing to mention, this company called Caran d'Ache. Sorry if I'm totally butchering the pronunciation, but that's the best I can do. They do make this universal colorless blender that's lacquered, woodless. So I basically tried this on every brand represented here in this comparison. It did fairly well, with some brands better than the others. So in the case of the Faber-Castell, it did pretty good. You can achieve pretty sharp line as well as a pretty smooth fade out, as seen on this red color. Again, this red color was the same or the closest to all in the 12 pack included. When it comes to Derwent, that being the saturation not so rich and not so pigmented, you can see that all three circles here are pretty light in saturation. However, the Caran d'Ache blender did fairly well. This last column here is where I use the paper Tertullian on all the brands. So Prismacolor, again, the Caran blender did pretty well. It actually did better than the Prismacolor colorless blender, which I was surprised. But then again, I already mentioned that when it comes to blendability and blending the Prismacolors, it does take a little bit more work than I would like, and this clearly is represented here on this sheet. Paper Tertullian, it was satisfactory, I guess, but some blending can be achieved. But needless to mention that these wax Prismacolors are really thick, smooth, but to the point of sticky when they lay down on the paper. Koh-i-Noor's Again, the performance of the Caran d'Ache and the Polycolor colorless blender seems to be pretty close in performance. Paper Tertullian, again, not great, but not too terrible either. Lyra, both the Caran d'Ache blender and the Lyra Splendor, that's their own proprietary blender, did fairly well. Paper Tertullian, not so much, but then again, it doesn't surprise me. I did mention in the beginning that the laydown is not great at all. Once you put them down on the paper, it feels like a permanent marker than a pencil. Like there's very little you can do to alter the laydown once it's down on the paper. Finally, Blick Studio pencils. Again, both Caran d'Ache and Blick Studio blender did well as the Paper Tertullian here on the side. So again, this was the Lightfastness test and the blendability test. You can see that most of the manufacturers fare pretty well and equally on the battlefield when it comes to the blendability. The Lightfastness, the loser obviously stands out, that being the Lyra Rembrandt. So I hope you enjoy this little video comparison of the colored pencils. Whether or not you're on a hunt for a new set of tools, new set of pencils, this should give you some idea to an insight of what's out there, what's my personal favorite, what I think you should get, or is worth getting. I hope this video got you there. So just a quick recap. In my opinion, based on this review, this is the winner. You get quality, most bang for your buck, Blick Studio from dickblick.com. And also, I'll see you next week in our regular scheduled vlog.